Darnell Hayes walked home through the dimming streets of his neighborhood, the late afternoon casting long shadows that seemed to echo the heaviness in his chest. Just moments ago, he had faced Inspector Leroy Whitman, a man whose hardened gaze carried the weight of prejudice heavier than any badge. The confrontation left Darnell shaken, not merely because of the cold command to halt, but due to the underlying suspicion that clung to him like a second skin. The streetlights flickered uncertainly overhead, mirroring the flickers of doubt and anger swirling inside him. The weight of being treated not as a person, but as a threat pressed down relentlessly. The shattered glass on the sidewalk caught his eye. A fragment gleamed sharply, reflecting shards of the sky like broken promises. That broken pane from a neighbor's car suddenly became a symbol of all the dreams fractured by systemic bias. In that moment, Darnell's heart clenched. His hopes for fairness, respect, and normalcy seemed to scatter just like the scattered glass. Each jagged edge a reminder of wounds inflicted without apology. Yet within the fracture lay a strange beauty. An unspoken vow that from destruction might come change, though it came wrapped in pain. His mother, Velma Jenkins, awaited him at their modest doorstep, her eyes a blend of fierce concern and quiet resilience. "Darnell," she said softly, pulling him into a steady embrace. "They cannot define who you are. Never forget your worth." Her words, simple but profound, grounded him. Velma had faced her own battles, and her enduring strength gave him a beacon in the darkness. Though the world outside seemed bent on crushing his spirit, inside this small sanctuary the air hummed with an unyielding love that fortified his wavering courage. Next to Velma stood Malia Freeman, whose unwavering activism had become a lifeline for many in their community. Her gaze did not shy away from the ugly truth of Whitman's bias. Instead, it fueled her determination to resist. "We cannot let fear silence us," Malia urged, her voice a steady flame. She offered practical support and rallied others, reminding Darnell that he was not isolated in this struggle. Her relentless energy wove a tapestry of solidarity around him, a reminder that collective strength might push back even the most entrenched hate. Booker Simmons, the community's seasoned veteran, approached with slow, deliberate steps. His salt-and-pepper beard and weathered hands told stories of battles fought both abroad and at home. Booker's advice penetrated deeper than any lecture on law or politics. "Son," he said with measured calm, "this storm tests us all, but your spirit must be the anchor. Fight, yes, but also find peace within yourself. The road is long, and endurance is our most powerful weapon." Booker's wisdom, born from decades of struggle, planted seeds of resilience in Darnell's weary mind. Malik Thornton, Darnell's childhood friend, remained a quiet figure in the background. Whereas Darnell wrestled with confrontation, Malik chose silence, bearing the weight of consequences with a stoic acceptance. Their paths diverged in that silence, the shared memories now tinged with the bitter taste of fear and resignation. Malik's taciturn stance reflected a complex survival instinct, a protective shell forged in a world where speaking out sometimes invited harsher punishment. His silence was not weakness, but a language shaped by painful experience. Celeste Grant, the teacher who had once inspired Darnell's dreams beyond the narrow horizons of their neighborhood, appeared like a star in the heavy night. She stood firm in her belief in education's power to transform, her gentle encouragement a beacon of possibility. "Change starts with knowledge," she reminded him softly, "and courage to see a better future." Celeste's presence promised that the fight extended beyond the street. It was about shaping hearts and minds, sowing seeds of empathy where hatred had taken root. Then, unexpectedly, Elaine Patterson, their elderly neighbor, stepped forward with a gesture that startled Darnell. Having witnessed too many incidents of intolerance from her porch, her kindness defied the usual coldness of the divided world. Offering a meal and a listening ear, Elaine's small act spiraled into something far greater, breaking the rigid barriers of fear that often isolated them strangers even in close quarters. Her openness whispered a powerful truth. Empathy could exist even in unexpected places, and sometimes a single human connection could begin to unravel the tight knot of hatred. As night deepened, the fractured glass still glinted near Darnell's feet, an unspoken challenge burning in each splintered piece. The brokenness was real, painful and undeniable, but so too was the stubborn spark of hope, flickering against the odds. This moment marked not surrender, but the fragile birth of a fight that would demand every ounce of his courage and the collective strength of those who stood with him. The road ahead was uncertain, shadowed by relentless injustice, but illuminated by the resilience threaded through his heart and community. With his mother's embrace, Malia's determination, Booker's wisdom, Celeste's hope, Malik's silent courage, and Elaine's unexpected friendship, Darnell's world had shifted beneath his feet. Though scarred, it was no longer bleak. The broken glass no longer only symbolized despair. It was a mirror reflecting the complex beauty of resistance, survival, and the fragile promise of change. Step by step, heart by heart, the fight was beginning, and tomorrow held a new story waiting to unfold. Darnell Hayes felt the weight of the summer heat pressing down on his shoulders as he walked past the cracked storefronts, the distant hum of sirens blending with murmurs of unrest. Each step was heavy with a silence that seemed louder than any shout, a silence born from years of unseen prejudice and unspoken pain. Today was no different, yet every encounter cut deeper. Leroy Whitman, the local officer whose gaze lingered too long with suspicion, had followed him again today, his rigid posture a reminder of the walls Darnell faced daily. The street was not just a path but a gauntlet, every glance a calculated assessment of threat or innocence. Inside him, a storm brewed, frustration tangled with hope, anger tempered by memories of his mother's soft voice reminding him to hold on to his dignity. At home, Velma Jenkins, his mother, awaited with a quiet strength that belied the turmoil in her heart. Her hands, worn from years of labor, braided comfort into the evening, her eyes holding stories of battles fought long before his time. "You carry more than yourself, son," she said one night, pressing a worn photograph into his palm. It was an image of his grandfather standing tall against hate, a beacon of resilience. Those moments with Velma kindled a flame, a reminder that beneath the burden lay a deep reservoir of courage. Yet even her steadfast love was not always enough to shield him from the sting of exclusion and the harsh words thrown like stones in alleys and classrooms alike. Malia Freeman, his closest friend and a fierce voice for justice, met him with fiery determination. Together, they formed a fragile coalition against a world that seemed determined to silence them. Malia's rallies, her relentless speeches, and the energy she poured into protests kindled Darnell's resolve. Yet even as she stood boldly, others faltered. Malik Thornton, their childhood friend, chose silence, a choice that cut deeper than any insult. His refusal to speak out left a gap, a painful reminder that fear often shackled even those most affected. Darnell wrestled with feelings of betrayal and isolation, questioning whether the weight of the fight would ever lessen. In the dim light of the classroom, Celeste Grant, their teacher, became a symbol of hope. Her lessons extended beyond textbooks to life, championing understanding in a fractured society. "Education is our weapon and our shield," she declared softly, eyes shining with conviction. Her encouragement was a quiet rebellion against the oppressive tides outside the school walls. She challenged them to see themselves not as victims, but as architects of change. Yet even her light flickered under the pressure of a community divided. Hope seemed fragile yet persistent, like a candle battered by wind, but refusing to die. Then came the breaking point, a moment etched in memory like a jagged scar. During a tense gathering, a bottle shattered against the concrete, its fragments sparkling cruelly under the streetlights. A stark metaphor for the shattered promises of equality and justice. The crowd's roar was a cacophony of pain and rage. But amid the chaos, a subtle gesture altered everything. Elaine Patterson, the soft-spoken neighbor known for her quiet life, stepped forward. Her hand extended not in judgment, but in unexpected solidarity toward Darnell. That fleeting act of kindness amidst the turmoil was a beacon, a reminder of humanity's potential to bridge divides. It was as if the broken glass held a mirror to their fractured society, and Elaine's gesture was the first glimmer of repair. Booker Simmons, an elder statesman of their community, had long spoken of endurance and unity. His gruff voice carried stories of past struggles and victories, insisting that the fight was worth every sacrifice. "Strength lies in standing together," he would say, pressing a calloused hand into Darnell's shoulder. The words resonated deeply, urging Darnell to rise above the anger, to transform pain into resolve. Yet this was no simple path. Each step was haunted by the shadows of systemic injustice embodied in Leroy Whitman's relentless suspicion and the town's whispered prejudices. The tension between resistance and resignation played out in the spaces between these lives. The streets whispered secrets of shattered dreams, but also of budding hopes. Darnell oscillated between despair and defiance, carrying the invisible scars of a society slow to embrace change. Malik's silence was a wound, but his absence also forced Darnell to look outward, toward unexpected allies and new methods of protest. Velma's wisdom, Malia's activism, Celeste's guidance, Booker's counsel, and Elaine's unexpected embrace formed a mosaic of resilience against the backdrop of discrimination. The night sky above stretched endlessly, stained with both smoke and stars, mirroring the tumult within Darnell's heart. He understood that his journey was not just a personal battle, but a fragment of a larger struggle sprawling across generations. The shattered glass was not only a symbol of broken promises, but also a call to piece together a future forged in solidarity and courage. Each character's presence, from the doubtful Malik to the steadfast Elaine, underscored the complexity of human responses to injustice. In this crucible of conflict and compassion, Darnell's spirit burned brightest, a flame flickering yet fiercely alive. As dawn approached, the streets grew silent, but the fight for dignity reverberated louder than ever. The story of a young man caught between despair and determination unfolded not as an isolated tragedy, but as a testament to the indomitable strength found in community, resistance, and hope. The echoes of these moments promised that change, though slow, carried the power to transform even the deepest wounds into stories of renewal. And so, with a heart heavy yet hopeful, Darnell stepped forward into the uncertain light of the new day, ready to confront what lay ahead. The sun dipped low behind the cracked windows of the old community center, where Darnell Hayes had once dreamed of becoming a leader, a beacon for change. Now, the broken glass at his feet glistened like shattered fragments of hope. each sharp edge reflecting memories of the day Leroy Whitman, the local police officer, had stopped him on the street. It was not the first time Darnell had faced Whitman's cold gaze, but this time it carried something heavier, a weight of assumption, prejudice, and raw hostility that seemed to suffocate the very air around them. Darnell clenched his fists, the ache in his chest mingling with a fierce, burning resolve. Thoughts stormed in his mind. The endless traffic stops, the murmurs behind his back, the whispered warnings from Malik Thornton, his childhood friend who had chosen silence over confrontation. Malik's quiet retreat into acceptance haunted Darnell. He didn't want to surrender to the crushing system, even as every breath in this neighborhood reminded him of inequality's suffocating grip. But the pain was real, deep and relentless. His mother, Velma Jenkins, had always been his refuge. Her wise eyes held stories of survival and unyielding faith, her voice a balm on stormy nights. "You carry more than your own fight, Darnell," she had told him many times. "Our struggle is rooted in generations, but remember, the darkest nights birth the brightest stars." Those words pulsed within him now, a flicker amidst the growing shadows. She believed in hope when it was hardest to find, and somehow that belief had to become his armor. The confrontation with Whitman left more than bruises and bitterness. It ignited a spark of something new within Darnell. When he met Malia Freeman afterward, his oldest ally and a fierce activist tirelessly fighting for justice, her smile was both a comfort and a call to arms. "We are not alone," she said, handing him a flyer for a community meeting. Her passion was contagious, a reminder that resistance could take many forms, from protests to conversations that dared to challenge the status quo. Together, they found themselves in the faded walls of the neighborhood school, where Celeste Grant, a teacher beloved by the community, spoke about resilience and the power of education. Her words wove through the crowd, each phrase a thread sewing together fractured hopes. It was Celeste who urged Darnell to see beyond the immediate pain and channel his energy into change that would endure. "You are the author of your own story," she said softly. "Let it be one of courage." Yet the path was not without fractures. Malik, once the brother Darnell had trusted unconditionally, had chosen to walk a quieter path. His silence was a gaping wound for Darnell, a reminder that not all battles could be fought with fists raised high. "Sometimes surviving means bending," Malik had said once, his eyes shadowed with fear and regret. Darnell wished he could pull his friend back from the edge of despair, but even love had its limits in the face of systemic injustice. Unexpectedly, support came from an unlikely place. Elaine Patterson, a longtime neighbor often overlooked, stepped forward with steady kindness that soothed old wounds. Her peaceful demeanor and simple gestures, offering a cup of tea, standing beside Darnell during protests, speaking out when others stayed quiet, began to shift the tides. With her, Darnell saw how bridges could be built not just on shared struggle, but also on empathy and understanding. One twilight evening, as the city buzzed with unrest following yet another incident of injustice, Booker Simmons, the community's venerable elder and veteran, found Darnell sitting before the flickering remnants of a burned trash can. Booker's voice was gravelly but firm as he spoke of resilience rooted deep in history. "Young blood, you wear the scars, but also the strength of those who came before," he said. "Our fight is not just against those who hate, but against the silence that lets hate thrive." Inspired by Booker's words, Darnell realized that his journey was no longer just about personal survival. It was about carrying the collective pain and hope of a community intertwined with his own soul. The shattered glass beneath his feet was no longer a symbol of defeat, but rather a mosaic, a painful yet beautiful testament to endurance, each shard catching light and refracting a new possibility. Despite moments of despair, Darnell embraced the power of solidarity and the courage found in vulnerability. Standing alongside Malia, Velma, Celeste, Elaine, Booker, and even struggling to hold on to the memory of Malik, he stepped forward, his voice rising in a chorus demanding justice and equality. The battle ahead was daunting, but Darnell's spirit was unbreakable, illuminated by the knowledge that even in ruins, hope could take root and grow. The night air was thick with tension, but also with determination. Darnell looked back at the broken windows, now illuminated by the glow of street lamps and the collective will of those who refused to surrender. He knew this was only the beginning, a fragile yet fierce promise that from pain, strength would emerge, from division, unity, and from despair, a future reborn. As dawn edged the horizon, casting light on the scars and victories alike, Darnell's story intertwined with countless others fighting for dignity. In the heart of darkness, a community stirred, awakening to the shared truth that the only way forward was together. The echoes of hatred might linger, but the song of hope was growing louder. With a steady breath, Darnell prepared to face what came next, holding tight to the profound realization that while injustice sought to silence him, his voice was part of an unstoppable chorus demanding change. The journey continued beyond the broken glass and harsh words, toward a horizon where equality and empathy might one day prevail. And so, with courage renewed and allies united, Darnell stepped into the next chapter, not as a victim of his circumstances, but as a beacon lighting the path for those who would follow. The story was far from over, but hope had already carved a place amidst the ruins, promising that even the most shattered dreams could be pieced back together with care, resilience, and unwavering faith in the fight for justice.